Hi guys, Lynn Cox here, anxiety and stress expert. You might be able to hear a funny noise in the background. My little doggy sitting behind me licking his paw. Anyway, I wanted to hop on today and talk a little bit about timing and what the cost of inaction is. Consider it lost opportunity cost. And the reason I want to discuss this, I'm actually thinking about a client that I saw recently, as well as two people who were seeking help and actually didn't end up getting a session. So I'm going to start with the two people who I spoke with recently looking for assistance with overcoming issues related to anxiety. One of them is a woman who's middle-aged mother and has long been struggling with two very specific symptoms of anxiety. I mean, she's had a variety of different emotions attached to that for pretty much most of her life, but she's also has the behaviors that she's doing that are kind of the most overt and recognizable are she picks at her skin and pulls her hair out. These are two conditions. The other is a young man, not quite in his 30s, university student, and in fact, his mother reached out to me a year ago because he was struggling and being a caring mother, hoping to help support her son, she was looking for some help. They contacted me a year later. So he was 27 when she first contacted me. This time he was 28. A year had passed and his experiences had worsened. And his particular issues were that he feels what he's terming as a lot of stress and anxiety, and is turning specifically to alcohol to ease the symptoms, which is very, very common. A lot of people turn to alcohol, drugs, other things we would call addictive behaviors. One thing I will say is it's never about the substance. There's always something underlying that. And, he'd been medicated with a drug. I hadn't actually heard of it. But it's a drug that apparently lessens the desire to drink. So very kind of Band-Aid level. So I spoke with both of these individuals, and what I can tell you is it was clear to me that they are both experiencing deep amounts of pain. Different ages, gentlemen, 28, but has been experiencing this for quite some time. His symptoms are worsening. The woman, she's about mid-40s, close to 50, so add 15 years. And, I haven't seen them as clients. Perhaps I will. Perhaps they will find another, method therapist. But it does bring me to the point of, what are we waiting for, and what is the true cost of doing nothing? Which will bring me to a client I saw recently. Originally, he was going to see me for a deep fear and phobia of death, which is actually a very common phobia that many of us have. We went to have our session, and on the spot, he said, "You know what? Can I change that? Let's deal with this procrastination issue I have." Fair enough. A fear of death is a very deep-rooted fear. I think the only one that tops that, interestingly enough, is the fear of public speaking. So we addressed his issues around procrastination, which do inextricably connect to his fear of death. So before we went into hypnosis, I talk to clients, I get a little more information on what their situation is, and we do also paint a compelling picture, a very vivid, very exciting picture for the mind to adopt. This is the new experience, the new set of beliefs. And I loved how he said it because this gentleman, very successful business owner, multiple businesses, family, from an outsider's perspective, would just seem like he's got everything together, and I asked him to describe how he wants to feel, why he's doing this, why it's important to him. And he said so emphatically, it actually nearly brought tears to my eyes. He said, because I want to, by the time I do pass away and do die, know that I didn't leave anything on the table. So he came at it from the perspective of he wants to know that he has done everything that he can do to be the best husband, father, business partner, human being, really stretched his potential. He wanted to make sure, and this gave him a sense of, this was what he needed to give him a sense of ease, which was, I want to know that I didn't leave anything on the table. Thinking about these two other individuals who reached out who, were seeking help, but not quite at the point where they were ready to pull the trigger or pull the trigger seeing me. I really do hope that they find a path forward to deal with their symptoms, because life is not enjoyable when you're, constantly feeling anxious, fighting with urges to drink, band-aid solutions, pulling out your hair, like it is not a very enjoyable experience. But they both weren't ready at that point in time, and that does lead me to so many people who I do see have tried a number of different approaches for whatever their issue is, presenting symptoms. And so it just reminds me to let people know, or just re-emphasize that try to sit down and look at what is the actual cost to your life of doing nothing. Now, with something like quitting smoking or quitting an addiction, it can become quite obvious. There's a financial cost. There are clear studies around impacts on health. It's very, you can make a direct correlation to what the potential cost of doing nothing is to you or could be to you. For something like feeling anxious, having performance anxiety, feeling that sense of inhibition, those fears, some of the kind of obsessive compulsive behaviors that can come along with that. Sometimes it can be a little more difficult to make that connection, but think of it in terms of perhaps lost opportunity cost. Who would you be? This is where we need to start to engage the imagination, which a lot of people do struggle with. But who could you possibly be? How could you possibly feel with this behind you? That's what we need to start to engage ourselves in. And that can start to create the picture of, okay, another year could go by and I could miss out on all of these potential amazing things. What is that worth to me? And I will say that a lot of people don't pursue challenges because there is a level of fear with the emotional pain that can come along with staring something directly in the face that can feel like a failure or a disappointment. That keeps some people from looking at what is it in their lives that really isn't working for them, really isn't serving them. There's that fear of facing the emotions of sadness, regret, anger, etc. So that can be a part of it. There also, with some people, there can be a belief that nothing will work for me. And I just don't buy into that. I have, been in the therapy world for, a few years now. So I'm not, Marissa Peer has been in this line of work for 35 years. I know many other people who have been in this arena in some capacity, be it psychiatrists, psychologists, medical doctors, counselors, Reiki practitioners, hypnotherapists, etc., coaches, lots of those around. But, you know, some people do believe, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, that didn't work, nothing's going to work for me. And I just would encourage people to not believe that that's the case. I mean, this can get into, as existential questions like, what's the purpose of life? Are we meant to be happy? Is it meant to be suffering, etc., etc.? But you can actually form that belief for yourself. You can adopt the belief that life is meant to be, more enjoyable perhaps than it is. That perhaps you have more, more power over what unfolds in your life. And there is a way to, be able to deal with the challenges and the emotions that come your way, because emotions do need to be felt. They don't have to completely keep us held back. So it is this kind of fine balance of being realistic that as humans we're going to experience a range of emotions, to understand, to trust ourselves enough to deal with these in a way that can be more productive and healthy, and we can set that up for ourselves, but to also know that we do have a lot of, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological capabilities that often we haven't tapped into yet, and maybe our beliefs are misguided. So, I just like to. I did feel a lot of empathy when I talked to these two individuals. I do hope sincerely that that they, look at their lives and decide that perhaps it can be a different way, and urge anybody who's kind of going, well, that's just my lot in life, or that's, I haven't been able to deal with that thing just yet. I'm 55 years old, so whatever. That's just how it's going to be. It doesn't have to be that way. And I loved what this client said when he said, I just want to know that I didn't leave anything on the table. I thought that was a really fantastic way to explain it. And as he said it, everything about him lit up and was energized. So you have to find that thing that elevates your energy when you think about it. It could be that you want to set a really good example for a child in your life, or be a good partner, but there can be something that is that thing that that inspires you to say, no, I'm going to deal with this because of this. So you can think about that and just know that it's never too late. And, I don't want to scare anybody by saying, what's the cost of doing nothing? But there is a cost of doing nothing. And there's no reason to succumb to that if you feel like you don't want to. And I hope you're all having a great day, and I will chat with you soon.